Hello and welcome to ECW training. In these short videos, I will be demonstrating how to process various lab orders. We will be learning how to process same day order, also known as current. We'll be learning how to process a future order, also known as a lab only visit, as well as the situation. And we will also learn how to reconcile expired orders. So before I begin on demonstrating how to process the same day order, um, the, the, the screen that you have in front of you is what we call the resource schedule. And this is where appointments are scheduled by the front desk or providers. But for a detailed overview of this screen as well as other screens, I am strongly recommending that you view the general overview video that we have posted online. And that video is going to help you navigate through ECW. So again, I strongly suggest that you view that video to kind of close the loop on these trainings. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start the documentation of how to process a same day, also known as current lab orders. So again, we're at the resource schedule, and here's where appointments are scheduled. And this screen is pretty much viewed, can be viewed by anyone at Unity, but it's mostly used by people who have the access to schedule appointments. So also now I want to gear your attention here now to this S Jelly Bean, because this is where we will have to go in order to begin the process on sending this lab order to LabCorp. So as I gear to the S Jelly Bean, it's going to give me a drop down, and I'm going to select office visit. And so I click on that, and it's going to take me to another view of today's current schedule. Okay. And I do want to bring to your attention that the office visit is usually used mostly by clinical staff. So if they just wanted a glimpse of their schedule, they are usually in the office visit screen. So this, as you can see, we had all the appointments that were, let me just take you back really quick to the resource schedule. All the appointments that were scheduled on the screen, on this screen, are going to automatically transfer over to the office visit screen. All right. So if something's not entered correctly, or if there's a missing appointment, is because it's pretty much getting its information from this screen here. So I'm going to head back to the office visit screen. And as you can see, it's blank. I have no patient scheduled for the day, and that seems kind of odd because I did have one patient scheduled on the resource screen. So that may be the reason why it's not appearing, may be because maybe one or two or maybe all of these categories are not filled in correctly, are filled in incorrectly, I'm sorry. So now I'm going to go ahead and pretty much give you a detailed snapshot of these categories. So on the top left-hand corner, it reads its office visit. It has today's current date. And so if you wanted to navigate throughout the year, you can either click on the left arrow or the right arrow, or you actually click on this calendar icon to navigate through the year. Ask Eva, this feature is not turned on, so you can go ahead and ignore it. Moseying down the blue band here, you have three categories. You have providers. So if you just want to look up a singular provider's schedule for today, you can go ahead and do so. If you wanted to take a glance at just at the resource schedule, meaning, you know, appointments scheduled with MAs or just the lab sites, you can select the resources. Or if you wanted a combination of both, you click all. But as a lab tech, as someone who's going to be processing the lab orders for a particular site, your best bet is to keep it at all. So you're able to see not only the same day orders, but you'll be able to view future orders that are on the list as well. So I've selected that category. So now I'm going to go down here. The provider here is where you can actually select a provider that you are looking for. In this particular instance, for this training, I'm going to be selecting A Unity as a provider, but I am going to strongly notify that A Unity is a dummy provider. A Unity is not a real provider, so it should never be used as a provider that's seeing appointments. Okay, this is just for training purposes only. The next categories here on your right hand, you have the appointment time, and if you drop down this arrow here, you're going to get multiple options to choose from. You can view your schedule by selecting all day. You'll get the whole list to populate from morning to afternoon. If you just wanted to see the morning appointments, and you would select morning. And if you just wanted to view afternoons, you can go ahead and select afternoons. The choice is really up to the user. I'm going to go ahead and select all day. The view, it should always remain at all. Although you have options to choose from as a lab MA or lab tech, you always want to make sure that you don't miss any appointments, so you just want to leave it at all. The sort by. Again, you have options. You can sort your list by appointment time, patient name, check-in status, or provider appointment time. It's strongly suggested as a lab tech that you either choose appointment time or patient name, but never select check-in status, because that's going to pretty much be driven by the front desk staff, and if they actually check in the patient or not. And because accidents have been known to happen, sometimes they forget to check in patients, so that's not something that you want to select. And neither provider appointment time. Okay, so I'm going to leave it here at appointment time. And last but not least is the facility. I always want to make sure that my facility is correct. If I happen to be afloat and I travel from site to site, this will always have to be changed. So for this particular training, I'm going to go ahead and select my correct site. You can click on this arrow and scroll through, or you can just go ahead and free text. And as you can see that I selected my site. Once all these categories are filled in, I'm going to go ahead and select filter. And once I did that, it's going to actually populate the patient list for that particular day. And as you can see, I have 2 appointments, and I wanted to stress the fact that one is an established visit type and the next is a lab only, which is also known as a future. But in this particular video, we're going to only be processing the established visit, which is a current visit. So I'm going to go ahead and select this visit by checking the box right beside the name, and I'm going to select View Orders. Before I do so, please note as you're processing the lab orders, you will ignore all of these tabs here, with the exception of the View Orders. Okay, so we're going to head click View Orders. And what that's going to do is going to take you to the patient's order window. Okay, we're always going to confirm that the patient's name is indeed correct. Okay, and the patient's demographics. Moving right down below, anytime you click on the view orders, it's automatically going to pop up to current labs. Okay, so as you can see here, we have 1 lab order that the provider has asked us to process. At this time, you become the second eye for the provider. Sometimes they will only have 1 lab order for a patient, or they will have multiple. It really depends. But either way, at this point, you become the second eye for the provider. Here is where you will be confirming if all the orders that have been placed have the UHC prefix, which stands for Unity Healthcare. And that is an indication that the labs that have been placed are common orders. Unity Healthcare has a contract with LabCorp. If a UHC prefix is attached to any order, Unity will get a discount. Now, with that in mind, please note that there are few orders in ECW that do not have the UHC prefix, but that is because it has not been tagged as a common order. Okay, so again, we want to confirm that all our common orders like a lead, CPC, lipid panel, chlamydia, all our common orders, all our routine orders have the UHC prefix. The next thing we're going to be looking for is we're going to make sure that there are no duplicates. And what I mean by that is that sometimes providers will order a panel and a single order, not confirming that the single order had already been included in the panel. Okay. And last but not least, as we move on with the processing order, we will be confirming if the assessment code has been assigned to the order. So let's go ahead and begin. Now, once we have confirmed those two things, we have a UHC prefix, that there are no duplicates. We're going to go ahead and move on with the process. So at this point, I'm going to double click on the order. And as you can see here, it takes me to another pop-up window. Here is where we are going to actually fill out the 6 mandatory fields that is needed in order to send this order to LabCorp. Again, on the top left-hand corner, it reads lab results and the patient's name and demographics. Moving right down below, it's pretty much the same thing. The patient name is in bold, as well as the patient demographics. This green arrow that's pointed down, if you select that, it's actually going to open up this panel here, and it's going to give you more information on the patient, okay, as well as these sticky notes. And as a lab processor, you pretty much don't need to actually adhere to any of these sticky notes that have been posted. This green tab here pointing to the right, if I select that, it's going to open the pop-up window and it's going to actually expose the right-hand panel. And again, as someone who's processing lab orders, the right-hand panel is not necessary. Okay. And so I just remove the right-hand panel. So let me move this one back here. This blue band here, you can pretty much ignore. We don't need that to process the order. Moving right down below here, we're going to go ahead and fill out the 6 mandatory fields. Again, I'm repeating the 6 mandatory fields that need to be filled out in order to transmit this order. Okay. The first one is the assigned to. As you can see, the assigned to should always match the provider's name. Again, please note that because this is a training, I have used our dummy provider, AUnity. But at the sites, if you should actually get any order that reads AUnity as a provider, please make a note, contact the front desk staff, and let them know that this patient has been scheduled under the dummy provider, and therefore the provider needs to be changed and be assigned to the correct provider who ordered these labs. So again, the assigned to is 1. We're going to go ahead and select AUnity. The collection date is 2. Timestamp is 3. The source is 4. Clinical information is 5. Here's where you put tube type used and the number of tubes used. And timestamp is 6. So those are the 6 mandatory fields that need to be filled in. Again, the assigned to, 1. Collection date is 2. timestamp is 3, source is 4, clinical information is 5, and notes is 6. Okay? Again, provider, collection date, time, source, clinical information, and timestamp, the notes. Those are the 6 mandatory fields that need to be filled in. Now, if you recall, I mentioned that you would have to be confirming if an assessment code had been assigned. Now, as you can see here under the assessments, you see here that the provider has selected the diabetes assessment code and he checked it off. That is the correct protocol. All assessments have to have this box checked. If you should find an assessment that is missing the checkbox, then by all means, do not select the check. Do not fill in the checkbox. Okay, what you would do here under internal notes, you would just say missing diagnosis code. Okay. Also, if the patient is a hard stick, if you do not collect enough specimen, we do have a contract with LabCorp that will still try to attempt to run a result. So you can say here, patient was a hard stick. Okay. And then we click OK. And as you can see here, it says yes under the done category. Now, in order to submit that, we click on send. And it's going to take you to the common send window. Again, it's going to populate the patient's name, the date of birth, and the account number. It's got 2 categories here. It's got patient orders and for patients. It's always going to default to the patient orders. The lab company that needs to be filled in, you need to select LabCorp. The assigned to, in this particular training, is going to be AUnity. The clinical information, you don't have to put in. Comment, you don't have to put in. Specimen source, you want to select blood. The collection date. Okay, and then the timestamp. And the facility should always populate. Now, I do want to bring to your attention here the mode. If you drop down, just want to let you know that you do have several options. You have print, fax, e-transmit, or e-transmit only. All right. When submitting a lab order to LabCorp, it's either going to be e-transmit only. Okay. So as you can see here, all these orders have been checked off, but we have only processed 1 order. And as you can see, the remaining orders here have an F. That stands for future. So I want to deselect them because we have not processed them. Okay. And as you can see here, the collection time populates just for 1 order. I hit apply to select it. And as you can see here now, my mode reads e-transmit. Okay. If I want to print out the label for the tubes, I go ahead and select print label. Okay. So so your Dymo label that's attached to your computer can go ahead and print the labels. And then I hit this send button right here. As you can see here, it says only the green check boxes, only the lab orders that have the green check items will be sent through the transmit mode selected. Okay? I'm going to deselect these because these are not ordered, and click the specimen on the first one. Okay? And then I click, sorry, I'm going to click that. I hit send. And once I click send, it's going to give you a preview of the LabCorp requisition, okay, that's going to be printed out. You always want to make sure that the correct site is listed on here, that it's Ballou High School. You want to make sure that the provider's name is on there, okay? You want to make sure the patient's name is correct. You want to make sure that you have the test order, the test name, okay? You want to make sure that the number of tubes appears here, okay? The specimen. If you have all those informations, then you can go ahead and hit print. Once the printer spits out the LabCorp requisition, then you can go ahead and attach that requisition to the lab order and place that in the specimen bag that's going to be sent to LabCorp. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. And that pretty much concludes how to process a same-day order. I'm going to exit out of here, click done. Done. I'll just click OK. So please make sure, again, that you fill out the 6 mandatory fields and you become the second eye for the provider. If you do that correctly, then the actual lab results will be transmitted back to the provider's Jelly Bean. So thank you for watching. Please make sure that you watch the following videos on how to process the future and the situation. Thank you.